Chapter 1. Discovery. Troy Darrow lowered the 10 by 50 binoculars, his hands inside heavy thermal mittens, eyes shielded from snow blindness by goggles and polarized lenses. He could hear the helicopter, even though the howling of the ice storm, but could not see it. He stood outside Deep Core Station on the Antarctic Peninsula, an arm of land reaching out from the vast continent itself, bordered by Bransfield Strait on one side and the Weddell Sea on the other. Temperatures could reach minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit on the peninsula. In the interior, where the helicopter was coming from, they dropped so low, Antarctic veterans commonly referred to the peninsula as the Banana Belt. Troy raised his binoculars. This time, he could see the helicopter, a big belly Sikorsky dropping like a gray ghost through the ice storm. "Coming in!" he shouted above the wind. The ground crew at Deep Core Station scrambled to clear the iced-over runway for a landing. The Sikorsky buckled as it came down, the pilot fighting to steady it against the buffeting winds. The moment the helicopter touched down, a fuselage panel slid open and a man jumped out onto the tarmac, dressed in the same type of protective thermal suit the others were wearing. Troy walked up to him. "Sure you didn't make a mistake out there, Jack? It could be some kind of igneous rock." Jack Rain shook his head, his beard rimmed with ice frost. "It's no rock. Rocks can look a lot like different things, especially when they're frozen inside a glacier. You're the geologist, Troy. You see rocks everywhere. But I know what I saw. This is no damn rock. It's an egg." His words seemed to ring in the air, even above the howling of the ice storm. Both men knew what this discovery could mean. Antarctica is a frozen desert. Its deep interior, covered by an ice shield 2 miles thick in places, is almost entirely lifeless, cold and sterile as the dark side of the moon. Nothing larger than lichens can survive in such an environment. "This thing's inside a glacier?" Troy asked. "Way the hell down. Deep down. Maybe first we'd have to cut through all the ice. Then we'd have to take it out of the rock." "What rock?" "It's inside some sort of crevice in this rock wall. The glacier's grown up over it." "Did you get pictures?" "Video. Does Burke know about this?" "We called him first, before we contacted you." "What about Tarosh?" "He knows everything before it happens. Him and that Russian name of his. What is he anyway? Ex-KGB?" "I don't know what he is," Troy said. They could hear the sound of another helicopter then, coming through the ice storm. Deep Core Station had only one. "You expecting any surprise visitors?" Troy asked. "Kelly Sawyer, that hot little number who works for EPA." "Kelly Sawyer? How the hell did she find out about this?" "Hey, the monitor our radio bands all the time, Troy." "Son of a bitch. She's a blonde babe, man. She's a pain in the ass." They could see the other copter now, rocking on the winds of the storm. After it landed, Kelly Sawyer was the first one out on the frozen tarmac. Loose strands of blonde hair stuck out from beneath her thermal hood, stiff with ice frost. She walked over to Troy with a determined stride. "Were you present when they found the specimen, Darrow?" "No, but Jack was." She turned to him. "What sort of protective measures did you take? Did you notify other bases about this?" Jack raised his hands. "Whoa, Kelly! I'm just a field scout, okay? I don't make no calls on what we find out there. I don't care what your job description says, Rains. You may have located the first hard evidence of pre-existing life forms in Antarctica. It's your responsibility." "Wait a minute," Troy cut her off. This isn't the place to fight about it. Burke's holding a meeting inside. You can lodge your protests in there, Miss Sawyer. Oh, I didn't know I was invited. You're not, but since you crashed in here without an invitation, you might as well attend the meeting. Jack started to laugh. A look from Kelly stopped him. Dr. Lyle Burke, lantern jaw veteran of several winter and summer Antarctic expeditions, sat at the head of the table in the deep core map room. The man next to him was the iron gray mustache was Valentine Taroche, senior political appointee to the Department of Energy and head of the top secret operation known as Project Deep Core. The other people around the table included Troy, Jack, Mike McClevey, logistics chief, Horst Zalman, and Eric Agnor, two of Taroche's men, and Kelly Sawyer, bioconsultant for the Environmental Protection Agency. This is where the object was found. Burke pointed to a U.S. Geological Survey map. Beyond the Ross Ice Shelf in the vicinity of the Transantarctic Mountains, not far from the Axel Heiber Glacier, the one Roald Amundsen and his men climbed on their way to the South Pole in 1911. Right, Jack? He nodded. About 80 degrees south. About. Kelly mimicked them. In the vicinity of... Why of all the vagueness, Dr. Burke? Trying to keep this a secret? If that's what we think it is, Miss Sawyer, we don't want to broadcast it to the whole world. And if what I think it is, it belongs to the world. And what is that, Miss Sawyer? Valentine Taroche asked. The egg of an extinct life form, possibly a dinosaur. The other men around the table glanced at her, their faces betraying surprise. Taroche merely smiled. Interesting, he said. It's premature to speculate at this point, Burke said. It could be the fossilized egg of an emperor penguin, or something that looks like an egg. The next logical step is second field examination of the object to look into the feasibility of removing it from the ice for further study. The other men at the table nodded their agreement. That's the last thing we want to do, Kelly said. Burke looked up at her. Come again, Miss Sawyer? This is a landmark discovery, Dr. Burke, with profound implications for the international scientific community. You can't just treat it like another core sample. What would you suggest? I agree that a second field examination is called for, but the egg should not be removed from its present location under any circumstances. It might be damaged or destroyed. How can you examine it in a glacier? Troy asked. Several sensing methods are available, including ultrasound, to determine its biotic viability. What do you want to do? Listen for its heartbeat? She looked at Troy, then started to answer. Burke spoke first. Whatever we decide, we need to send another field team out there now. Weather conditions are extremely volatile in the interior. Blowing snow could obscure the site or bury it altogether. Jack Raines has volunteered to lead his group back up to where they found the object. They need at least one trained geologist to go with them. How about it, Troy? Fine with me. When do we leave? Before Burke could answer, Kelly said, I'm going too. A silence followed. The other men looked at Burke. Miss Sawyer, he said at last, we're talking about the deep interior. Conditions there are far more severe than anything you've experienced here on the peninsula. You're also not a seasoned Antarctic hand. This is your first summer down here. Besides, there's no urgent reason for you to accompany this team. I think there is, Dr. Burke. Article 3 of both the Antarctic Treaty of 1959 and the Antarctic Declaration of 1984 specifically states that any discoveries made south of 60 degrees must be shared with the international scientific community. I want to be there to make sure that happens. Miss Sawyer, any important information will be exchanged with the appropriate scientific authorities. Sorry, Dr. Burke, I'm not convinced. Everyone knows that a deep core station is really some kind of top secret operation. That's why the EPA sent me down here to check it out. Top secret, Valentine Taroche said. You make it sound like something from a spy novel, Miss Sawyer. The Cold War is over, and with it, the imperative for military secrecy. You're saying this isn't a classified operation? There are other reasons for caution, of course, such as the protection of vital U.S. economic interests. Sorry, Mr. Taroche, the right to scientific knowledge takes precedence over anybody's national interest. That's why I'm going to be a part of your team, whether you like it or not. Troy said to Burke, you mentioned her lack of experience with the Antarctic conditions. What if something happens to her out there? It could force us to abort the expedition. We can't afford a risk like that. Burke cleared his throat. I do have the authority, Miss Sawyer, to refuse this request of yours. Yes, Dr. Burke, and I have the option of going to the international news services, including CNN, with the story that a top secret Department of Energy operation is sending a team to investigate the discovery of an unknown life form somewhere near the Axel Heiberg Glacier. Angry murmurs rose from some of the men at the table. If you try to stop me, Dr. Burke, I'll use that option. Troy glanced at Burke, who cleared his throat again. In that case, Taroche said, we have no choice. He turned to Kelly, a thin smile on his lips. Well, let's begin to our Chapter 2 expedition. Revival. The helicopter carried them into the heart of whiteness. The huge ice sheet of the interior lay spread out beneath them in all directions, marked here and there by patches of dense, low-lying fog. Straight ahead loomed the trans-Antarctic mountains, cold and white like jagged teeth in an open mouth. They sat inside the belly of the Sikorsky, cramped by supplies, sleds, panting sled dogs, all the precautions necessary for sustaining life in an alien, forbidden world. Why can't we use snowmobiles instead of the sleds? Kelly asked, shouting over the steady pounding of the rotor blades. Snowmobiles are just toys, Jack shouted back. They're not reliable. Engines get clogged with snow and ice. Motor freezes up. Damn things stall out and you're dead. That don't happen with dogs. Besides, Troy added, if things get desperate enough, you can always eat the dogs. She stared at him as he sat chewing beef jerky. The helicopter soon took a dip, jostling supply bundles and setting the sled dogs howling. Kelly grabbed hold of a nearby bundle. What was that? Just the descent, Troy said. We're going down. It didn't feel like that back at Deep Core Station. This is the interior, Miss Sawyer. Landings are rough out here. If you come down in one piece, you're lucky. They stood outside the helicopter, blades cutting through wind and snow as the last of the supplies were loaded off. I'm freezing, Kelly said, her mouth protected by a thermal mask. How cold is it out here? Troy checked the weather gauge. About minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And with the wind chill? Anybody's guess. My suit must not be working. I can't stop shivering. Your suit's fine. Shivering's a normal adaptation to extreme cold. You'll get used to it. Now you know why the peninsula is called the Banana Boat. Kelly frowned at him, but he had already turned to Jack. How far do we have to walk before we find this thing? Troy asked. About 2 miles. That doesn't sound bad. You haven't walked it yet. First mile's uphill. Jack pointed to a wind-blown slope in the distance. Last mile's downhill to the valley with the glacier, Jack said. So we get to climb both ways, going in and coming back? You got it, man. Shivering in her thermal suit, Kelly came up beside them.
What were you out here looking for in the first place? She asked. Mineral deposits? Oil reserves?
Jack glanced at Troy, then said, Ice samples, Kelly. We were, back there collecting ice samples.
Ice samples, right. Project Deep Core's nothing but a land grab by the Department of Energy. You're down here to look for oil reserves and mineral deposits. You don't care that Article 7 of the Antarctic Declaration of 1984 specifically prohibits exploration for or exploitation of mineral resources.
Troy finished her sentence for her. I've read it too, Miss Sawyer. Like Jack said, we're going down here for the ice samples. Why don't you go back to the helicopter and warm up inside for a few minutes before it takes off?
Her eyes widened behind the goggles. It's leaving?
It'll come back and get us when we're finished, Jack said. But it can't just sit there like a taxi with the engine running. Rotors would get clogged, same as the snowmobiles. She turned to Troy.
How long is this job going to take?
That depends.
On what?
What we find once we get there.
She looked at both men, then turned and ran back towards the helicopter, still shivering inside her thermal suit.
Jack lowered his voice to Troy. She'd go ballistic if she knew what Tarosh was really having us look for. Keep your mouth shut, and maybe she won't find out.
As they began their descent into the valley, they entered a world of fog. It came over them like sudden blindness, cold, damp, impenetrable. Their progress slowed to a crawl. Walking became uncertain and dangerous, with every step a possible plunge into an unseen, snow-covered crevasse, or off the edge of a narrow trail that wound its way down into the glaciated valley. They let the dogs go first, trusting their animal instincts. After hours of inching downward through the fog, Steve Oldman, the man in front with the dogs, called out,
This feels like the right place, Jack! Not that nobody could see nothing with all this damn fog. Let's break here, said Jack, and wait for it to lift. Ain't gonna lift no time soon, Jack. Then we'll wait for it to clear some.
Even as he spoke, the fog lifted slightly, revealing a deep valley filled with an immense blue ice glacier. Tendrils of dense fog curled like smoke around the edges of thick blue ice. Is that it? Kelly asked.
Guess so, Jack said.
You guess? You didn't mark it?
Jack looked away, but Troy said, Marks don't keep very well out here in the interior, Miss Sawyer. The wind blows them away or rubs them out.
Kelly squinted through her iced-over goggles at the blank glacier wall in front of them. You couldn't see anything inside there anyway. That ice is filthy.
It's just scarred up by the wind, Troy said. Once we polish it up a bit, we'll be able to see inside.
She saw several team members begin to scour the surface of the ice wall with what looked like portable buffing wheels. As they worked on it, the surface turned slowly from opaque white to a vision of crystalline clarity. The inside now stood revealed before them, as if the entire glacier had been fashioned from cut glass. Kelly raised her goggles and stared into the frozen world. It was like looking inside a brilliantly clear ice cube, magnified thousands of times. Blue-tinted light rippled before her eyes. Giant air bubbles hung suspended in the ice, like crystal globes floating through space. It's so clear, she whispered.
Purest water on earth, Troy said, just like they claim in those commercials. Except this is no bull. It really is the purest water in the world, frozen millions of years before there were cars or jumbo jets or dirty humans too. There it is! Jack pointed to a spot deep within the ice, where an object about the size of a grapefruit rested inside a cleft of the rock wall.
As the other team members stared at it, wisps of fog drifted across the polished surface of ice.
A rock, Troy said, if I ever saw one.
Rock hell, Kelly said. That's an egg.
It's not big enough to be a dinosaur egg.
They weren't that big. The largest dinosaur eggs ever found aren't much bigger than cannonballs.
Troy turned to Jack. How do we get inside there? Guess we could always cut our way in. That might take us the rest of the summer. You got a better idea? I say we blast. This thing's a glacier, Troy. You could stir up more than you mean to. Get us all buried in an avalanche down here, so the next team comes out and finds us frozen in the ice too, just like that goddamn egg. It's the only way to get it out fast, Jack. Besides, even cutting could cause structural faults in the glacier and bring it down upon us. Either we blast or forget it.
What are you talking about?
Kelly asked. Strategy, Miss Sawyer. How to get this precious egg of yours out of the ice before the Antarctic winter closes in.
I don't want the egg removed or even touched. I thought we agreed on that back at Deep Core Station.
The only thing we agreed on was to take you along on this fool's errand. And that wasn't agreement so much as blackmail. Even Tarosh is scared of CNN.
You want to set off explosives?
That's the only way I know how to blast.
Kelly's mouth dropped open. I can't believe it. I got ultrasound equipment here, Darrow. We can find all we need to know about that egg without cutting any of the ice away.
You go ahead and use your equipment now, Miss Sawyer, while we're getting the gel-lanite ready.
You son of a bitch! Who do you think you are? You can't just start setting off explosives in the Antarctica. That's in complete violation of every treaty ever written. I'm going to report you, and not just to the EPA. I'm going to report you to the UN and the World Court.
Whatever pleases you, Miss Sawyer, but you won't be able to file any reports until we get back to base camp. And by that time, I'll have the egg out of the ice.
Why are you doing this, Darrow? You don't even care about that egg. You think it's some kind of rock.
All I know is Tarosh wants that rock, and Tarosh runs Deep Core Station, and that's who I work for right now.
What does Tarosh want with the dinosaur egg?
I have no idea, Miss Sawyer. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some gel-lanite to prepare.
You know what you're doing? She called after him. You could be destroying a legacy from over 60 million years ago.
But Troy was already unpacking the explosives from one of the supply bundles, and he did not stop to answer.
When the gel-lanite was in place and the fuse set, Kelly tried one last time to talk Troy out of it. You're making a terrible mistake, you know that.
It won't be the first time.
He ignited the fuse, crouched behind several large boulders. They all watched the narrow plume of smoke rising in the frigid air as it raced towards the explosive.
I hope it blows us all to hell, Kelly said.
If I packed it wrong, you may just get your wish. Jack laughed.
But there was not much mirth to it. The fuse seemed to sputter out.
Must have gotten wet, Jack said. Yeah, Troy agreed. Should have tried an electric.
The blast came then with a force that seemed to tear the glacier asunder and shatter the foundation of the valley itself. The sound of the explosion assaulted them in shockwaves, followed by huge chunks of ice, as big as the boulders they crouched behind. The air of the valley, when they could hear it again, rang with the sounds of splintering ice and falling rocks and rolling reverberations from the blast. Gel-lanite smoke filled their lungs, making them wheeze and cough. Ice splinters were still falling when Troy got to his feet and looked at the result of his handiwork. A large opening had been gouged into the surface of the glacier, like a gaping mouth of a deep cavern. Inside the newly formed ice cave, broken glacier shatters littered the way towards the rock wall and the cleft where the egg rested, freed from the ice at last.
You destroyed it! Kelly shouted at him, brushing ice splinters from her thermal suit. It's probably nothing but bits of eggshell and fossilized embryo by now. Troy squinted through the shifting clouds of smoke. Still looks like the same to me, but there's only one way to find out for sure. He started forward, ice fragments crunching underfoot. Kelly grabbed him. What do you think you're doing? Seeing if there's enough left for a dinosaur omelet. You're not going in there without me. I thought you didn't want to move it or even touch it. That's before you blew the hell out of everything. We gotta take that egg out now to protect it. Listen, Jack said, raising a hand. Hear that? They all strained to listen, ears still stunned by the force of the blast. They could hear crackling sounds in the distance, sharp and loud, like an amplified rifle shot. Whole damn mountainsides caving anew mini glaciers, Jack said. We could be caught in an avalanche any minute. Nobody ought to go inside that glacier right now. We'll be careful, Troy promised. The temperature plunged suddenly as they stepped into the ice cave, colder than anything Troy had ever experienced in all his time in Antarctica. Kelly started to shiver uncontrollably. You ought to go back, he said, his own teeth chattering. You go back, Darrow. I want that egg. Clouds of warm vapor billowed from the mouths as they spoke, moisture freezing on contact with their thermal masks. They made their way over the broken shards, underfoot slipping and stumbling towards the rock wall and the egg. A sharp crack sounded overhead. Troy looked up to see a thin fissure snake its way across the ceiling of the ice cave. Whole thing's starting to come down. We should go back. So go! I'm not leaving without the egg. He watched her for a few seconds, scrambling over ice shards ahead of him, shivering from the cold and from somewhere more than the cold now. He hurried to catch up with her. They found the egg inside the cleft of rock wall where it had first been placed over 65 million years ago. It was still encased in a small block of ice, like a jewel in amber, frozen throughout worlds of time. Blue light filtered down through the ice walls of the glacier, making the egg look transitory and unreal, a vision from a fitful dream. Troy took an ice knife from his pocket of his thermal suit. We can cut it out of that block in no time. Keep your power tools to yourself, Darrow. This ice has protected it for 65 million years. We'll just leave it the way it is. You can't drag a block of ice that heavy. If you shut up and help me. As Kelly attempted to move the ice block, it slipped from her grasp. She gave a startled cry, ah! And Troy tried to catch it, but the block skidded down the rock wall and smashed against the cave floor in a spray of ice shards. The egg, undamaged, rolled across the slick surface of the cave floor, spinning sideways like a top. Kelly started after it, skidding on the ice as she ran. The egg rolled up to the edge of a fissure and fell in. Kelly hesitated at the edge, then jumped in after it. Kelly! Troy shouted at her. He reached the opening in time to see her sliding down the jagged ice walls, the egg rolling on ahead of her. Both came to a sudden stop at the bottom of the fissure. You okay? He called down to her. Yeah, she answered, echoing up from inside. How's the egg? Before she could answer, a loud crack broke from the ceiling above, followed by a shower of ice chunks, some of them large as metal girders. Kelly screamed inside the fissure. Troy took out his ice knife. Stay there, don't move. What are you doing? Coming down to get you. Using the ice knife as a piton, he worked his way down the wall of the fissure. Another crack came from the ceiling. More ice chunks rained down on them. It's going to bury us alive, Kelly cried. Here, he reached out a hand. Give me the egg. Kelly clutched it to her breast. No, nothing doing. I fell all the way down here after it. I'm not letting it. The crack this time seemed to shake the whole cave. Kelly yelped as a huge chunk of ice fell a few feet away from them. All right, Troy said. Go ahead and be stubborn. Hang on to the egg with one hand, but hang on to me with the other. He scaled the side of the fissure wall using the ice knife to gain traction. The overhead cracks came at regular intervals now. The shower of ice chunks fell non-stop. After they reached the top of the fissure, they ran through the falling ice, the entire cave reverberating with the sounds of the glacier collapsing on itself. Outside the cave mouth, Troy signaled to the others.
Run! Glacier's coming down! The whole goddamn valley's coming down,
Jack said. The glacier burst apart at that moment. The team members scattered and ran for cover. Gigantic sheets of ice broke loose from the mass, falling through the air in slow motion. One of them landed on Steve Oldman and his dogs, crushing them beneath its frozen weight, their screams drowned by the roar of falling ice. When the avalanche finally stopped, the survivors dug themselves out to find the valley buried in snow and ice once again, reabsorbed into the harsh white landscape of Antarctica.
Chapter 3, Hatchling. The debriefing took place in Lyle Burke's office. Oldman was dead when you found him? Burke asked Troy. There was no way to move the ice sheet. He looked dead. And the explosion you set off earlier weakened the glacier structure and caused the avalanche. I take full responsibility for that, sir. It was the only way to get the egg out. Tarosh and his damn egg, which could still turn out to be a penguin egg for all we know. It's already cost the life of one man, not to mention 4 sled dogs, plus equipment. Where's the egg now? Troy asked, with Kelly Sawyer. I thought she was supposed to fly back to the EPA base over King George Island. She and Tarosh are looking at the egg in storage. The place where we keep the radioactive waste containers? Burke looked up at him. Yes. They walked from Burke's office to the storage depot down a narrow prefab corridor. While unheated, it gave some protection from the biting cold and allowed them to wear anoraks and gloves instead of thermal suits. Why is Tarosh so interested in this egg? Troy asked. Your guess is as good as mine. Whatever it is, I hope he gets over it so we can carry on with our real work down here. Jack, walking with them, said, That valley where we found the egg seemed like it might be a good place to store radioactive waste. But now that, yes, Burke said, now that Troy's blown it up, we'll have to find someplace else. The Trans-Antarctic Mountains are still our best bet for long-term storage of radioactive waste. Of course we have the EPA breathing down our necks now in the form of that Sawyer girl. Why Tarosh is encouraging her to stay here with the egg is beyond me. Maybe he thinks it could turn out to be valuable, Troy said, if it really is a dinosaur egg. If it's a dinosaur egg, Burke said, I'll eat it. The storage depot, the largest building at Deep Core Station, stood back by itself, isolated from the rest of the compound. Dark and high-ceilinged, it had shadows that concealed stacked rows of unlabeled radioactive waste storage containers, mostly spent fuel from U.S. commercial nuclear reactors. The egg, its shell light brown and faintly speckled, sat inside a glass case on a long table, flanked by heat lamps and special monitoring devices. Kelly was reviewing data displayed on the computer screen, while Valentine Tarosh looked over her shoulder. Farther back in the shadows stood 2 of his special security consultants, Horst Zalman and Eric Agnor. Well, Miss Sawyer, Burke said as he and the others entered the storage depot and walked over to the table. Have you determined just what the kind of egg this is? Kelly did not look up from her screen. A dinosaur egg from the late Cretaceous about 65 million years ago. Are you sure about that or just guessing? She looked up. I never guess at things, Dr. Burke. I'm a scientist, not a psychic. This egg wasn't produced by any known living species. It corresponds exactly to what we know about dinosaur eggs. Radiocarbon tests confirm its age. Troy smiled. Better get your knife and fork out, boss. Burke said nothing, at a loss for words. Tarosh smiled at him. Extraordinary, isn't it, Lyle? And to think that we should be the ones to find it. Yes, but this fossilized embryo in good condition? It's not a fossil, Kelly said, turning to the screen. What are you trying to say, Miss Sawyer? It's biotically viable. It's biotically viable. It's a living embryo. What are you trying to say, Miss Sawyer? It's biotically viable. It's a living embryo. That's impossible. The ultrasound tests are conclusive. It's alive. Burke stared at her as if the words made no sense. How did a dinosaur egg wind up in the Antarctic? Troy asked. You should know the answer to that, Darrow. What do you mean? You're supposed to be a geologist. Ever hear of the theory of Gondwanaland and continental drift? Sure, the idea that the outlines of the 7 continents sort of fit together because millions of years ago they were part of one landmass, Gondwanaland. When it broke apart, continental drift carried the continents to their present locations. But after Antarctica started drifting towards the South Pole, its weather changed from semi-tropical to freezing. Wouldn't that have killed off any dinosaurs along for the ride? Probably. But if the big freeze came fast enough, it could have just quick frozen any nesting eggs. Then it should have quick frozen the bodies of dead dinosaurs too. How come we haven't found those buried in the ice? Maybe they're down there if you dig deep enough. Troy thought about that, then said, now that it's been defrosted, how long before this egg of yours hatches? I hope not before we fly it back to the EPA lab. Do our facilities displease you? Tarosh asked. They're okay for temporary incubation, but this is the most important biological discovery ever made. We have to protect it with the full range of modern scientific technology. Of course, Tarosh said. Arrangements are being made for airport transport to Santiago de Chile and from there back to the U.S. But, he shrugged, such things take time. Have you tried contacting the EPA Antarctic station on King George Island again? Kelly asked. Of course. But the storm interferes with transmission. I never had any trouble calling you guys from over there. Weather conditions, Miss Sawyer, are beyond our control. Tarosh sounded sincere, but as he spoke, he exchanged quick glances with Agnor and Zalman, who stood in the shadows. What happens if the storm doesn't lift? Troy asked, and the egg hatches here. Then we make the best of it, Kelly said. But dinosaur eggs usually took several weeks to hatch, and this one seems to be in the early stages of incubation. So we should really be okay, unless something happens to speed up that process. What would cause that? Nothing really, except maybe accidental irradiation, condensation. Nothing really, except maybe accidental irradiation. But background radiation's fairly low in Antarctica because of the ice shield. We're safe here. Later that night, Troy stood talking with Mike McKelvey, the logistics chief, near the feeding station for the dogs. Huskies crowded around the water troughs and food trays. Others burrowed into the snowpack for a night's sleep as the ice storm howled around them. Dogs seem upset tonight, Troy said. Maybe that's because of the 4 that killed earlier today. Or maybe because of that dinosaur egg. Could be. Dogs can sense a lot of things. That one seems to be spooked more than the others. Troy pointed to a dog with dark fur and yellow eyes. That's Wolf, McKelvey said. Mixed breed, half husky, half timber wolf. His mother was one of the 4 killed today. Father was a timber wolf? Yeah, he's a good dog. Miss your mom, don't you, boy? McKelvey tried to pet him, but Wolf, his natural mistrust of humans rekindled, pulled away, growling. McKelvey looked out at the bursts of snow-driven snow. Windy out tonight, he said. So bad we couldn't take the chopper up? What did you have in mind, Troy? Want to go back to the valley to the interior again? No, I was thinking more of the EPA base on King George. I don't see a problem with that. Then why won't Tarosh let us fly Kelly Sawyer back there? McKelvey turned and looked out at the storm again. Tarosh doesn't want us flying her anywhere. Did he say why? No. Did you ask him? Are you crazy? The moon drifted out from behind storm-blown clouds. Several of the huskies started howling at it. Oh! Do you think this has to do with the egg? Troy asked. Who knows? I don't ask questions that aren't none of my business. And that way I don't get somebody else's trouble. You know what I mean? Sure, Mike. At the other end of Deep Core Station, 2 men entered the correct security code in the door lock and stepped inside the shadowy storage depot. They wore protective clothing, but not the ordinary thermal suits used by station personnel. These were lead-lined suits with special gloves and hoods designed to protect their wearers from lethal doses of radiation. They moved to the center of the building, where the egg rested inside its glass case, lighted by the infrared glow of the heat lamps positioned above it and on all sides. Together, they dragged one of the waste storage containers over to the table with the glass case and the egg. They then loosened the screw-down locks of the container and opened its heavy metal lid. A faint blue light seemed to emanate from the radioactive waste inside. Satisfied with their work, the 2 men in their lead-lined suits left the room, closing the door behind them and locking it. Later, as the faint twilight of the Antarctic summer night began to give way to dawn, hairline cracks appeared on the eggshell, barely visible to the naked eye. The cracks grew wider, spreading over the speckled surface of the shell in an intricate lacework pattern. Movement became apparent next, a kind of rocking movement, tipping the egg to one end of its spheroid length, and then the other. A point bulged outward near the top of the shell. A light cracking sound could be heard. Pieces of shell broke loose and fell to the floor of the glass case. A small head, still glistening with some membrane, poked its way out of the shell, blinked its big eyes, opened its formidable jaws, and let out a tiny squawk, and then stared in wonder at the bright lights and dark background of its strange new world.